I'm sure many of us have parents that we love and adore, people that we would do anything for, especially in their biggest time of need. What Dylan Thomas did for his father has been etched in history. After seeing his father in poor physical health, Dylan Thomas wrote a poem to his father called "Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night." Dylan Marlace Thomas was born in Swansea, Wales, in 1914 to Florence Hannah, a seamstress, and David Thomas, an English literature teacher. Growing up in Wales, Thomas went to the school where his father taught. In school, he was an undistinguished student and left school at the age of 16 to start working at a local newspaper. He wrote a few autobiographical stories that showed he was a shy kid and transitioned into a rebellious teenager. Alcohol was discovered early in his life and remained a drunk throughout his lifetime. He was very aware of his poetry, and with each poem he wrote, he copied it into a notebook along with the date. These notebooks of his poetry were very detailed and organized, which was a stark difference from his actual life. In 1933, Thomas's first poem, Seen in London, was published in the New English Weekly. Over the next few years, he saw more and more of his poems getting published. Due to this, famous poets such as T.S. Eliot and Stephen Sponder wrote to him. He had gained a reputation in the world of poetry and could live off of doing poems and short stories. In 1937, he married Caitlin McNamara, who was a woman that Thomas could look for to give him strength. However, their marriage was dysfunctional, with World War making it hard for poets to find work and have enough money. Meanwhile, Thomas continued his pattern of heavy drinking, and this did not bode well for their marriage. One of his last poems was to his dying father, titled, "Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night." The poem reads, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learn, too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me, with how your fierce tears I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." This was written in the rare form of a villanelle that might show how much his father meant to him. A villanelle is an intricate poem type that has 19 lines, broken into 4 3-line verses and a single 4-line verse. The rhyme scheme is ABA, with lines 6, 12, and 18 being a repetition of line 1, and line 9, 15, and 19 being a repetition of line 3. In this poem, line 1 is "Do not go gentle into that good night," and line 3 is "Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Written in 1947, the context was interesting. While it was for his father, Thomas himself had seen his health deteriorating. He had issues dealing with coughing and wheezing, and suffered gout and gastritis. He himself was slowly dying and becoming weaker and weaker. This did not make him give up drinking, and he got sicker and sicker. In 1953, Thomas got severely ill, and while treating Thomas with morphine, he collapsed and went into coma. He died 5 days later, with the cause of death being a fatty liver and pneumonia. While his poem has strong meaning for his father to continue to fight on, it seems that Thomas himself did not do all he could do to fight against the good night. A deeper look into the poem reveals more meaning about the work. The first line, which is repeated throughout the poem, "Do not go gentle into that good night," is a direct statement to fight against death. As we can tell through closer reading, the night is seen as death, and night is good because at this time the men know that death is right. The second line, "Old age should burn and rave at close of day," simply means that old men should struggle with death and do as much as they can to fight against it. And then the third line, "Rage, rage against the dying of the light," means fight as much as you can to keep yourself from death before the light goes away. The fourth line in the beginning of the second verse reads, "Though wise men at their end know dark is right," suggests that Thomas is saying that dying is inevitable and that men at their end know that death is the right way to go out. And the fifth and sixth line are, "Because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night." This suggests that these men did not have a great impact in their life, and therefore they are not ready to die. The third verse reads with line 7 and 8, "Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay." The part, "the last wave by," suggests that the men are about to crash as they are out in sea, and their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay suggests that their potential good deeds could have had an impact, and that sea is life, and now they are about to reach their death. And line 9 reads, "Rage, rage against the dying of the light," which again suggests to fight as much as you can against the dying of the light. Line 10 reads, "The wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight." The word flight suggests that life goes fast, and the sun equals life, meaning that they live their life fully. But these men, as we learn in line 11 and 12, and learn too late they grieved it on its way, "Do not go gentle into that good night," means that they learn at an old age that they had been grieving death the whole time instead of living, because life is short, and while they thought that they were living, they were really just avoiding death. And then "do not go gentle in that good night" means they fight as much as they can because they know that their life is almost over. 13th line in the beginning of the 5th verse reads, "Grave men near death who see with blinding sight." This line can have a few meanings. One, it says grave men, which could mean serious, but it could also mean a pun, because graves are generally suggestive of death, and these men are near death. And the second part, "who see with blinding sight," shows that these men are limited in their sight because they're dying and they're late, and they can't see the world as they used to see it. The next line reads, "Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay," which means even though that they are so late in their life and they can't see how they used to see the world how they used to perceive it, they still have fight within them and great intensity. And then this verse ends with, "Rage, rage against the dying of the light," which again suggests that these men fight as much as they can against the dying of the light. The sixth and final stanza gives us the true meaning of the poem. It starts with, "And you, my father, there on that sad height." Here we learn that Thomas is actually writing this poem for his father, and he's there on that sad height, which means that his dad is close to death. The next line reads, "Curse, bless me, with your fierce tears I pray." We see an opposite here of curse and bless, and we see that Thomas is probably suggesting that it is a curse that he is crying because he's close to death, but it's also a blessing that he's still alive and fighting because his tears are fierce. And then we see line 1 of the poem repeated again. Do not go gentle into that good night. And line 3 repeated with rage, rage against the dying of the light. And he finishes the poem with telling his father to fight as hard as he can and give his father motivation to keep on living as long as he can.